Supreme Court's historic decision, the land sold in childhood can now return. Just imagine. One day you discover that the land where you grew up, the home where you took your first steps, now belongs to someone else. Sold off long ago by your guardian when you were still a child. No signature of yours, no consent from you. Could you reverse that deal? Could you reclaim that piece of land, those childhood memories, that right which was once yours? On 7th October 2025, the Supreme Court of India gave a landmark judgment that rekindled hope in the hearts of millions. A decision that not only redefined property law, but also expanded the very meaning of justice. The story begins in Davangere district of Karnataka, with an ordinary farmer's family. A father who once bought land in the name of his 3 sons. The year was 1971, a time when land wasn't just soil, it was honor. But as years passed, circumstances forced the father, Rudrappa, to sell that land without seeking permission from the court. His sons were minors at that time, completely unaware that their future had been sold away on a mere stamp paper. Years went by, the children grew up, and one day they learned the truth. To assert their rightful ownership, they sold the same land again, making it clear that their father's sale had been invalid. And that's where it all began. A legal battle that would go on for decades, ultimately reaching the Supreme Court of India. When the case first went to the trial court, it ruled in favor of the sons, agreeing that their claim was valid. But the High Court disagreed, questioning, if they didn't file a lawsuit, how can the sale be considered void? Without a formal case, how can a transaction be cancelled? That judgment was a major setback for the sons. But they didn't give up. They knocked on the doors of the Supreme Court. And that's where history was made. A bench of Justice Pankaj Mithal and Justice Prasanna B. Varle delivered a revolutionary verdict, stating that if a guardian sells a minor's property without obtaining prior permission from the court, then once the child becomes an adult, they can revoke that sale even without filing a lawsuit. In other words, silence or the passage of time will no longer strip anyone of their rightful ownership. This decision doesn't just protect property. It protects trust, inheritance, and the belief that justice may be delayed, but it can never be denied. Now, the natural question arises, was this not already the law? In fact, under the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act, 1956, Sections 7 and 8 clearly state that if a minor's property is to be sold, mortgaged, or transferred, the guardian must first obtain permission from the court. This permission acts as a protective shield, ensuring that the child's rights are not violated. But for decades, people ignored this law, sometimes out of greed, sometimes out of helplessness. And when the children grew up and tried to challenge such transactions, the courts often told them, you must first file a lawsuit. The Supreme Court's 2025 verdict has now lifted that burden off their shoulders. The court stated clearly, nowhere in the law does it say that a minor must necessarily file a suit upon becoming an adult. If the person's conduct itself reflects that they do not accept the earlier transaction, for example, if they sell or transfer the same property themselves, that is sufficient. This judgment has made the legal process more human and accessible. But this is not just a story about one case. It's about a mindset shift that brought India's property laws closer to the spirit of justice. Think about it. A child whose name was on a piece of land or a house might not even know that it was sold away during their childhood. When they grow up, they might not know the registry number, the witnesses, or even the date of the document. Should such a person be forced to file a case every time? Should they spend years running around courts? The Supreme Court understood this pain and said, no. The court also acknowledged that sometimes the minor continues living on the same land, cultivating it, using it, unaware that it was ever sold. In such cases, filing a case becomes unnecessary. If the person retains possession after adulthood, it automatically indicates that they never accepted the old sale. This judgment is a boon for those who were deprived of their rights as children. It sets a nationwide precedent, offering hope to thousands of families even today, where poor parents or relatives sold a child's property without the court's consent. Sometimes it was a mistake born of innocence, other times an act of greed. Legally, a minor cannot defend their own rights. That's why the law provides a guardian. But when that very guardian breaks the rules, what option does the child have? For years, there was no simple answer to this question. Now, the Supreme Court has not only given an answer, it has opened a new path. A path of justice through conduct. Let's assume a house is in a child's name. The father sold it without permission. When the child turned 18, he either sold the same house again or rented it out. Now, the first sale no longer holds any validity because his behavior clearly showed that he rejected that earlier transfer. The court said this will be called implied revocation, meaning cancellation through conduct. Not just that, this verdict has also shaken the real estate sector at the ground level. Now, anyone buying land from a minor will have to think 10 times. Did the guardian get court permission? If not, that deal can be cancelled any day, even after 30 years. This will not only make buyers more cautious, but also strengthen the protection of minors' rights. If you look at the social aspect of this judgment, it's a huge revolution. Because in India, millions of children have land, FDs, or some property bought by their grandparents or parents in their names. But due to social pressure, debt, or family disputes, that same property often gets sold without court permission. Now those children won't have to run around courts to get their land back. One act, one behavior will be enough. But behind this judicial verdict lies another message. Guardianship is not a right, it's a responsibility. If someone is a child's guardian, they're not the owner of that property, but a trustee. They can manage the property, but they can't sell it unless the court grants permission. This line, which earlier existed only in books, has now become a ground reality through this verdict. But let's go back a little to when this dispute began. In the small village of Shamanur in Karnataka, when Rudrapa sold the land, he thought he was doing it for his family's good. Maybe he needed money or had to repay a loan. But what he didn't realize was that he was breaking the law because his children were minors at that time. Time passed, and when the children learned the truth, they showed courage. They not only reclaimed their land, but also brought justice to millions of children across the country. This isn't just a case, it's a warning. Don't play with someone's childhood, because justice may come late, but it surely comes. Now the question is, what will change after this verdict? First, in any property deal involving a minor, the buyer will have to check whether court permission was obtained. If not, that property is legally risky. Second, if a person discovers after turning 18 that their property was sold, they no longer need to fight a long court case. Their conduct alone will be enough to treat the old transfer as cancelled. Third, this judgment will become a legal precedent for decades, a guide for lower courts to follow.
This video has taught you something new. Do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources, news from various news agencies, opinion polls and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.